How did Paddy Pimblett become so popular? And what lessons can we extract from the baddies hype train to better ourselves? To answer those questions, we have to examine the surface of this polarizing fighter as well as peel back the layers of what's going on inside the head of Paddy the Baddie. By now, everyone knows the story, but if you aren't up to speed, Paddy Pimblett controversially defeated Jared Gordon at UFC 282 by an unanimous decision. Whether you agree or disagree with the decision being a flat-out robbery, I think the one thing we can all agree on is this. If Paddy did indeed win, it wasn't a no-brainer or complete domination on his part, but his post-fight interviews would have you thinking otherwise.
What, just big people fight to the night or what?
The brash Brit didn't hold back in the slightest. Which, to his credit, good for you, bro. You're forever the hero of your own story. Maybe Paddy sees that he is becoming a UFC heel of sorts. He believes he is the second coming of Conor, which, as we all know, McGregor was the king of trash talking.
I'm looking around, I don't know what anyone else has for me around here. I might have to jump up and drag Floyd Mayweather out of bed and see what the he's at again.
The problem with this idea of being Conor 2.0 is that Conor could actually fight to back up his bold mouth. I repeat, Conor could actually fight to back up his bold mouth. And after examining Paddy's presence and technique in the octagon, it's pretty cut and dry that he has a lot of improvements to be made when it comes to the actual fighting aspect of the sport. Which, last time I checked, fighting technique for a fighter might actually be the most important part of the job.
I'm a scouser. We don't get knocked out. Hey, I take that all day.
Just a hunch, but what do I know? I just make YouTube videos. As a fighter, you learn not to leave your chin exposed when fighting on the streets or in competition. After you get hit in the face enough times, it's sort of common sense to keep your hands up to cover your face. This is base level stuff that a fighter should learn from experience fighting and a halfway decent coach, both of which Paddy possesses. But when paired with Paddy's bold claims of clearly winning this fight without a shadow of a doubt, it makes me believe there's a lot more going on in the psychology of Paddy Pimblett. But it is also one of the reasons the masses are so drawn to this man. Paddy clearly has high levels of delusional optimism and overconfidence, which at face value are not bad traits to have, assuming you have the resume and backlog to justify such thoughts. After seeing a lack of progression in Paddy striking through the years, this overconfidence and delusional optimism starts to expose the cracks in his armor. But there's no denying that the human race is drawn to overconfidence. Look no further than Catch Me If You Can's Frank Abagnale. Based on a true story, the film follows Abagnale, who forges fraudulent checks and cons his way through life, posing as a doctor, pilot, and criminal prosecutor, all the while being pursued by the FBI. None of these things would be possible, though, without the person Frank was conning being blinded by his zealous overconfidence. None of these things would be possible without a deep and intense belief in oneself. Being as they were all rooted in a lie, the hard sell as truth would require a larger-than-life confidence to read as authentic. And this translates well in the UFC, or any athletic endeavor that has an audience and it is attractive to us on an intuitive level. The rise of low self-esteem in young adults, and specifically young men in the Western world, is the perfect demographic to sell the idea of bravado and overconfidence to. It's an easy way to live vicariously through a real-world, larger-than-life character in hopes that they too can one day possess that level of boldness. The problem for Paddy is this overconfidence can get you knocked out or seriously injured in combat sports, believing you are the pinnacle of peak performance with no sense of urgency to improve. But that doesn't mean that we can't use the tactic of overconfidence and having delusional levels of optimism to improve our lives. It's a trait that will open doors for you if you can master it. Just make sure you're doing the legwork behind the scenes to justify an unruly belief in yourself. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite taboo subject: weight. Specifically, being overweight. It's no secret that we as a planet are going through an obesity epidemic, with obesity nearly tripling since 1975. Now, I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life, but if you do fall into this category, I think we can all agree that weight loss is a pursuit that is easier said than done. It's the reason the weight loss industry is so prominent, and also the reason for the rise in the body positivity movement. This shit is hard, and seeing someone successfully transform their bodies is nothing short of inspiring. And this is part of the reason for Paddy Pimblett's meteoric rise to the spotlight. His drastic weight loss transformations are something to marvel at, and give those struggling with weight a subconscious hope that it can be accomplished. It creates virality, because it is an ideal that anyone who acknowledges they have a weight problem aspires to.
Who's gonna miss weight?
Paddy is popular because he is visually easy to identify with, personifying the average Joe becoming the superhero, which is something that speaks to the soul for those observing and wishing they could do the same. Now, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that a professional fighter exudes insane levels of discipline. Countless hours spent in the gym training to fight a specific opponent, improving their game in striking, in the clinch, grappling on the ground, and cutting weight to make fight weight in competition. It's a full-time job for a reason, and not for the faint of heart. The problem on a surface level is that it's hard to visually quantify these things. We know these fighters do these things, but they show up as expected, week in and week out, and get the job done. Paddy is different. He often bloats up a hefty amount between fight camps.
As I say, sorry, I'm so fat.
No, you're good.
The UFC 282 match had him at a peak of 205 pounds prior to fight camp, having to drop all the way down to 156 pounds to make lightweight fight weight. From an optics standpoint, Paddy looks massively disciplined, being able to enjoy food like a rock star would, gaining nearly 50 pounds from his fight weight, and being able to lose it all just as easily is an inspiration for any onlooker. And I believe that's also a part of the appeal of Paddy Pimblett. He's a man of the people because he's a visual example of success versus a common problem that a majority of us face, making a very easy sell to be attracted to the aura of Paddy Pimblett. He is the UFC's visual representation of the common man's silent battle, and then he still has to go on to fight after the weight loss efforts are over. Meanwhile, I have trouble checking my mail more than once a week. Paddy is pretty badass when you really dice it down. Not to take away from the baddie, because he does have massive levels of discipline, but he has shit discipline for a fighter. All energy and effort must come from somewhere, with only so much effort and energy to expend per day.
Start the diet's killed me.
And when you have to lose that much weight for competition, fight camp suddenly becomes fat camp. A concentrated amount of effort must be invested into a stricter diet and workouts prioritizing fat loss, which will deplete energy levels and focus when it comes time to work on improving all things fighting related. Imagine how much Paddy could improve if 80% of his fight camp efforts could go to the fighting aspects of training, while the remaining 20% could go to the weight loss efforts, rather than the reverse ratio he is currently subscribed to. By the way, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But there's no doubt in my mind that you can absolutely learn from his actions and behaviors. Paddy is proof that with discipline, anything is possible. And that's a valuable lesson anyone can use. No matter who you are or who you are trying to become, discipline will always be an asset on your journey to get there. Paired with delusional optimism and overconfidence, you can become an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. It all starts with how you frame your observations and your current state of mind. Paddy will continue to be a household name for fight fans near and far. And while he is endearing to some and obnoxious to others, we can all learn through observation of his platform how we can use aspects of his character to become the ideal versions of ourselves. And for his sake, hopefully he improves on himself as well, because if the UFC pushes him to fight any ranked fighters in the top 15 of the lightweight division, he's going to be humbled in ways we've never seen before. I'll bring the popcorn, and I'm more than willing to share it with you guys. If you've made it this far, you're one of the boys, and I appreciate you watching all the way through. I wanted to try something different, format and video-wise, and would love your feedback on this style of video. And if you think this video can help someone, do consider sharing it with them. This is the Athlete Academy. Thanks for watching.